Difficult. Women. Hello and welcome to Difficult Women.
We are your hosts.
What if we did that?
Katy
That
and
would be
Marie.
so...
That's just how I talk now. After 2 minutes.
Hello!
Hi.
The world is dying officially. I think it's burning to the ground.
But I can still sound like a newscaster if I need to.
That's right. Oh, that's fun. That's so
That's
fun.
not great. That's what I do all day.
That was the highlight of my 2020.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Marie, if you don't know my voice by now.
I'm Katy. This is Difficult Women podcast that we're doing. We have another comedy band or a comedy band called Reformed Whores. You should check that out. It's a fun time.
And we have an incredible new music video.
Oh my gosh, yes, I almost forgot. That feels like 1 million years ago, but we just came out with it. It's really
so much has happened.
Yes, a lot has happened.
But yes, we do. We have a new video, and people from around the world submitted videos, and Katy expertly edited it together. So it's really great. Anyway, check that out if you'd like to. At Reformed Whores, you can go to YouTube, all that stuff. How you been, girl?
I don't know. I don't know who I am anymore, but it's totally fine. I was thinking what kind of stories do I have to tell? Not much. Things are reopening. I don't know. I guess that's a thing.
Yeah, I have seen that people are out and about in New York.
For better or worse. We'll see how it goes.
Will my roommate be going back to work?
Well, any of
That's
us.
the question.
Yeah.
Well, anybody. Yes. I actually have a cool story to share with you.
Share me a cool story.
I mean, it starts off bad but then it ends good.
Okay.
So makes it good for a good story.
Yep.
I think. I hope. I don't know.
Journey. Mm-hmm.
So a friend of mine from high school, I'll say his name. You can look it up because I'm sure you will after this story. William Haddon. He is a black man. He's married to a Persian woman. They live together over in Hermitage, Tennessee, and they've lived in this house for 14 years. And I believe ever since they moved in, they've had this neighbor across the street who always feels compelled to come over and comment on their house. Of course, she is a white woman, and things through the years have gotten really, really tense. Apparently, she has said some racial slurs through the years and just been a really, really nasty human being. So I guess the last time that she came over to comment on the house, William's wife recorded her on her phone, just the entire conversation. She ended up putting it on Facebook, and this video has gone viral. And so many comments and so many, it's just been crazy. If you want to watch it, I didn't share it because it is so negative. It is like the devil is in this woman, and there's nothing nothing to be done. Anyway, my friend William, I've just been I would not have handled it this way, but he has handled it. What does the Christian say? What's it in the Bible? It's like when darkness rises, you treat it with light. Or what is that?
I don't know. I haven't been to church in years.
He's like quoting the Bible. I'm like, I don't know what he said or what Jesus said. I don't know who wrote it. Yeah.
Turn the other cheek. I don't know. Something like that. Or return it, volley it back with light. Is that kind of Sure.
But he basically, so he did post this video. It went viral, lots of comments. But out of it, he started getting people to send him money to help fix up his house. And so actually, yesterday, several of us went over and pressure washed his front of his house, did his gardening. Like I was out there planting flowers.
That's nice.
I don't know how to do that, but I did it. The thing that I think I learned the most out of this experience was how negative and awful that video was. And also, I mean, just the experience that he and his wife have gone through for years. The husband of the woman and the woman have since apologized. And they were there yesterday cleaning the house and helping and talking and having conversations and things. And I had some very choice words I wanted to say to this person, but it's not about me. It's not about me changing this woman or anything. But
right.
My friend how he responded with positivity. And he's like, he met darkness with lightness or whatever the saying is. But I was just it reminded me so much of my Habitat for Humanity days, or like any mission work that I used to do. I had forgotten what that felt like, because I'm so combative these days, and my bandwidth for any kind of racism or Trump supporters, like I immediately just shut it off. And I'm realizing I do that because it makes me so uncomfortable and I don't want to deal with it head on. And just watching this example, of course it made William and his wife, it put them in a really weird position and uncomfortable and all this sort of, and like really focusing in on this hatred and this type of behavior and saying that it's wrong, but then accepting that people can change, and just the simple lesson of forgiveness, which I have not like seen like that firsthand. So it was really I don't know. Again, it wasn't about me, but I got so much out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's part of these inspiring stories are inspiring. I mean, it's that pay it forward idea, I guess, too, where like you hope that I mean, thank God it ended up like that. I guess it's also possible sometimes that they wouldn't have been as that the racist neighbors wouldn't have been able to be not to give them much credit, but that they wouldn't have been able to apologize, you know? And it's nice to see that. I think right now, especially because we're feeling so torn apart as a country in so many different ways, that it feels hopeless sometimes, that, you know, people won't be able to see what's really going on. They won't be able to change their minds. They won't be able to open their eyes. And I'm sure these people are still kind of racist, but like certainly that's like a step in the right direction. And it gives you some hope that they might be more willing to listen next time or what have you. And I mean, that's kind of sort of, I don't want to say it's the most you can ask for, because we want more than that, but it certainly is like that. Yeah, that's a hopeful
beginning
story,
to
some degree. Yeah, the beginning, the very tiny morsely beginnings of something.
Well, when I pulled up yesterday, there were so many people there. Well, to number one, I was like, oh, Corona, like, please, everybody. And everybody was practicing social distancing and stuff. And, but there were so many people. And then there was so much help that they started helping the neighbors, because they had a ton of mulch. And so they were starting to knock on people's house, doors saying, do you need mulch? And then we brought mulch over to the neighbors. And I don't know, it was just really hopeful. Like you said, it's very hopeful.
Well, what I like about that, too, is just that we've talked a little bit in the last podcast episodes about working with your communities to make change, right? And I think that's part of the thing, is if you really get to know the people in your community, then you can work together, and you are more motivated to work together if everybody's kind of like, oh, we are in this together. We are in all of these things together. And it's not just an issue for that particular couple or that particular, that fight between the two. It's like, no, everybody in the community can be involved in this and these discussions and etc. I'm curious though, like, your friend, did they feel like they knew that their house was sort of needed help, but they just didn't have the time and the money to like get it done? Or what was their position on that? I mean, obviously they wanted something to work on it.
Well,
but I mean, that's not really what
absolutely.
It was about, I'm sure.
No, in the video when he posted it, he did say, like, I am aware. I think he lost his mother, he lost his job. I mean, there's just a lot of circumstances that the house was the very last priority to tend to. He has kids, it's just a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Life gets in the way. That's normal for anybody.
And so anyway, it was really
That's
a
great.
neat thing. I think that more communities should, I don't know.
Well, neighbors should be helping out neighbors. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Why not? Like, that's a really good way to live. I also am a big proponent too of, like, we talk about this with like child rearing and childbirth, and how America has definitely become this place where everyone's supposed to just like be able to do everything by themselves. And that's like not how humans work, That's not realistic. And it makes people really depressed, And these people that live in communities that are communities just tend in the world tend to be happier people. I think we can learn from that. Takes a village, takes a village to do everything.
Start a cult.
Let's start a village.
Or a village, yes.
Let's be the village people. What?
I love it. I love it.
I don't know.
Anyway, I hope that little story gave some people hope in a sea of darkness.
Yeah, in a sea of hate. Yeah, I hope so too. If you need other ways to achieve hope and light, We have a website for you.
Check it out.
Free stuff is awesome, but free stuff to spice up your bedroom is even better.
Select almost any one item for 50% off, and then Adam and Eve loads on the free stuff.
Enter offer code HORIO at checkout and get 10 tantalizing free gifts.
A sexy item for him, a special gift for her, and a third item you'll both enjoy.
And 6 free spicy movies.
Ooh. Plus, free shipping.
That's HORIO, WHOREO, HORIO at adamandeve.com.
And we're back.
Well, that made me hopeful too. More hopeful. Everybody just relax a little bit, It'll help you relax.
I did get a toy recently.
What was it?
It's called, what's it called? Validator? No, I don't know.
Oh my God.
But it has 17 different speeds. Let me tell you.
17?
If
it's
anyone,
a lot.
Yeah, whoever invents these things, it's men probably. We don't need, I literally just need the one. The one speed. I don't need the pulses. I don't need the I don't need that. Just give me, yeah. Anyway, I'll sit on top of a dryer. That's what does it too.
Yeah, I don't know. That's great.
Good segue into what we're talking about today. Just kidding.
Yeah, sure. Not really. I don't know. Today, we're talking about gaslighting, something that's been coming up a lot in so many different forms.
Many forms.
And not that it's a new thing. It's just that we're all kind of becoming more aware of it, perhaps.
Yes. I had never heard of the term gaslighting before until, I guess it was several years ago. You were
Yes.
being manipulated by a man at a bar, and you said, "Stop gaslighting me." And I was like, "Isn't that a movie? What are you talking about?"
Well, and I want to clarify, he was not manipulating me. He was trying to manipulate me. And I was like, fuck that, you little fucking bitch. I was trying to think about he's another comedian. I can't think of his name, but I don't even want to give him any.
Well, I remember his name, but I won't say it.
I think he's gotten in Me Too trouble since then. I think he's got there's a whole thing. But I remember he was claiming that his mother, I think both his parents were professors. His mother was a professor of like feminist studies, and his father was a professor of like psychology or something. So he just was a self-professed feminist expert. And we were talking about porn. I cannot remember exactly what it was, but somehow he was telling me about how like a MILF can't be older than like 30 or something.
Oh God.
And he was just enraging me, but then also just shutting down anything I had an opinion about, or if I had a feeling about something, or my actual experience as a woman. He was like, "No, that's not a thing." And I was just like, "I'm gonna kill this man. I'm gonna kill him right here in this bar."
What I remember is him saying, "Well, I was raised by a woman," and you go, "I am a woman." And it was like, whoa. Okay.
He was so whatever. But yeah, so gaslighting, that was your intro to gaslighting, as you saw us arguing at the bar.
Teaching me what that is.
No problem. You're welcome. My pleasure.
But the history of it, real quick, it was a play. It came out, I think.
The term.
Because
I think, again, this has been happening since humans existed.
Right.
But
so it was a play, and then they turned it into movie. And the full movie is on YouTube if you want to watch it. It's Gaslight, that's what it's called. And the story is, I think I've seen it in cinema class or something, but if I remember correctly, the wife, it's a married couple. The wife's aunt has passed away, leaving her maybe some jewels or some sort. And then the husband is trying to find the jewels that he believes is hidden in the house of the aunt that has passed away. But in order to get these things, he's trying to make his wife believe that she's going insane. So he's slowly doing all sorts of things. But the main thing is like turning down the gas lights and making the room dimmer and dimmer, and then telling her that she's crazy to think that that's actually happening, until she gets like a second opinion of like, no, the gas lights are dimming. You're not crazy. Your husband is an evil man. So anyway, watch that movie on YouTube if you ain't got nothing else to do. But anyway, let's lead into 2020 gaslighting.
Well, so the term, so I was looking at like what the definitions are, because it is sort of like a tricky concept to some degree, because you're like, it is this idea of playing with like even saying to that guy, like, you're gaslighting me, and him going, no, I'm not, is
It's
gaslighting me. You know what I mean? But in psychology today, they defined it as gaslighting is a tactic in which a person or entity, in order to gain more power, makes a victim question their reality, which is like what you were saying about the movie, right? And right now, I think the way that it's being used a lot is it's not just that like you're questioning your physical reality. It can also be you questioning your feelings and your experiences that you've had and your perception of your experiences that you've had. So I think that that's an important distinction too. It's not just about like fiddling with the lights, to make you feel insane. It's really shutting you down to make you feel like your feelings aren't valid, which makes you feel insane because you're like, wait, but I swear to God, I felt this way.
I wish I would have had this vocabulary to actually come at my ex-boyfriend with this. But I remember in my 20s, the guy I was dating, I walked in on him. Like he did invite me to this gathering at a bar. But when I walked in, I saw him and he didn't see me come in, but I watched him with my own eyes. He was sitting there with this girl named Sarah, and he was playing with the ring on her finger, which was very intimate. Like playing, like, kind of holding her hands, but playing with the ring on her finger. And as soon as I walked in, he stopped. I sat down. It was like a thing. Later that night, I brought it up and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. No, you didn't see that. You're overreacting. And it was like, if I had known what this was called, I would have said, dude, you are gaslighting me right now. I saw with my very own eyes what you were doing. That was sketchy as hell. And it made me feel this way. So ladies, listen up. And men. I mean,
well, and I was also sort of curious about, they were saying that within relationships, like those kinds of like romantic relationships, there was I'm always really bad at citing my sources, but there was a psychologist who studies these things, and she was saying that in her personal experience, she was like, it really is primarily men that tend to gaslight women in romantic relationships. Because I'm not saying women can't gaslight people either. They do, 100%. But that also, that's worth noting that gaslighting is abuse. It's abuse. It's emotional abuse to deny facts around someone's environment or their feelings or their experiences. So I was curious about the person that's doing the gaslighting, and a lot of times they're not going into this environment trying to actively, you're not going in saying, oh, I'm going to gaslight this person, or I'm actively trying to manipulate this person per se. It's just a sort of a learned behavior. Sometimes you learn gaslighting as a technique from the people around you, maybe from your parents or from previous like relationships you've had or things like that. And also that these people are human, right? So they're just trying to function in their own way. And that's the way that they're functioning, is by trying to shut down the person. And a lot of times I found what I was reading about was that, the reason why gaslighting happens is because they don't want to have the fight. So that's a really good example that you had with your ex-boyfriend, where he just didn't want to either admit his wrongdoing. He didn't want to like have a real conflict or like a meeting with you about what it was that was going on in him in that moment when he was touching that girl's ring. And so it's an easier for him to just go, it didn't happen. But that's so fucked up, because like it really does leave a lasting, it can really fuck people up. Like people that get gaslit, it can really start fucking with their perceptions of like their own feelings. They don't know how to trust their own feelings. They don't know how to trust what they see. So it's a really dangerous way to try to deal with your own feelings if you are someone that has gaslit somebody before. And again, I'm trying to explain that, not just to sort of say like, I get that like there's a reason why it happens. It's not just like an evil person. Although that one guy I had a conversation with, I think he wanted to fight. That's a whole other thing. But I think that just so that like if you're a kind of person that maybe does gaslight people, but you're like, no, I don't. And if you've been accused of it, it's like me saying, hey, I get it. This is why it's happening. But you have to find other ways to deal with your lack of wanting conflict or whatever it is.
And I think also in a relationship where it can be a very negative thing, because I think people gaslight, you and I, we've been guilty of gaslighting each other. I mean, it's something that you are accidentally, you do occasionally. The thing about in a relationship is that when these master manipulators or have been influenced maybe by some sort of trauma or abuse growing up, and then it's kind of like a learned type of behavior that they combat confrontation with always. In a relationship, I think that it's a slow burn because they're just constantly, if you're with a person who's constantly gaslighting you for years and years and years, then it's such a cycle of abuse. And you have to confront it or get out, really, truly, I think, in a relationship.
I also wanted to clarify, though, there is a difference between gaslighting and having two separate perspectives. Because I think that, maybe we've gaslit each other, but I think more likely what happens in conflict is that my perception of this event was fill in the blank. Your perception of the event is fill in the blank. Now, if you're having conversations about how you experienced it and how I experienced it, I think that it's important to know that that's normal. You know what I mean? It's normal for people to be having conflict and coming in with different perspectives. It's not normal to deny something that actually happened and that person kind of knows that it happened. Like your ex-boyfriend, he probably knows he was touching that girl's ring, but he's saying that it wasn't happening, which is a different thing than just being like, I felt uncomfortable in that situation. It's like, well, I felt comfortable. You know what I mean? That's a different kind of situation because there is healthy conflict. There is healthy, it's important to work through things. And you can't just pretend and also you shouldn't be walking around expecting everybody to just take your side of everything all the time either. That's not what this is about. Right. You know what I mean? That's just an important distinction that we're talking about. I think that's what makes gaslighting tricky is that people don't want to feel like, wait, am I just trying to, if someone's telling you, you always have to be right, but then they're lying about circumstances, then this is where it's a tricky, insidious thing.
It's very tricky. But I think that it happens a lot with cheating. It's like when a partner is cheating, then they're constantly gaslighting you and is saying you're crazy. You're not.
Because they don't want to admit that there's something really going on. They don't want to have a real conversation about it.
Right.
And they want to keep you around. They don't want to lose you. You know what I mean?
Well, the biggest thing that I learned to help in a relationship is just constantly be journaling these situations. And then bring them to your partner and kind of ask for validation and have them hear you and say well, you did this made me feel, these are facts. These are the facts. And then you did this and it made me feel like this and I think journaling also would help in an early relationship if you see any red flags.
Right.
Which is always good to note.
Yeah. Well, so I just wanted to kind of go through too. If you're wondering, am I being gaslit? Here's a list that I found on Vox that was talking about how you can recognize if you're being gaslit or not, and then what you can do about it. And just a couple of things that you might be asking yourself a lot. Are you asking yourself, am I too sensitive many, many times a day? Are you feeling confused and crazy in your relationship? Are you always apologizing to your partner? You can't understand why you're not happier in this relationship because everything seems like it should be okay, but you're not happy, but you don't know why. You frequently make excuses for your partner's behavior. You know something is wrong, but you just don't know what. You start lying to avoid put downs and reality twists. So you lie and try to maneuver out of having these conversations with your partner. You have trouble making simple decisions. You wonder if you're good enough. And that some of those feelings can also come from depression or anxiety if you're too very sensitive and stuff like that. So that's also this is again an insidious thing. But if you're really feeling all of those things in your relationship, it's possible that you're not really being heard fully, And the thing that I read too about what do you do about it? I read about the journaling. But the other thing about it is what's really hard about these relationships is unless that your partner is willing to be self-aware and really work on these things and be able to admit yes, I guess you're right. I do that to you sometimes, then there's almost nothing you can do about it except just know that you're not crazy and leave. And that was something that really hit me hard as I was reading this. I was like, wow, you cannot control how another person wants to treat you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like I've been having a lot of conversations with some old high school friends who, one of them who just went through a divorce. And it's amazing how many years you go through trying to fix that person. And I actually brought up to my friend the She Is Not Your Rehab episode and I mean the movement of that, because if they can't acknowledge these things and seek help, then you have to just protect yourself and get out.
Yeah. And there's just not a lot you can do. And I hate to like, again, I like to be someone that's like trying to find the positive, and we try to like have solutions to these things. But if you're being like abused emotionally in your relationships, like it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think that because it's not your fault, it's not you're not able, you can't fix something that's not your fault. You know what I mean?
Right. I watched this woman, Ariel Levy's, her TED Talk on gaslighting, and she was actually gaslit by her own mother all growing up. So it's child abuse.
So that's the other thing is, just as a side note, that yes, this can happen in all sorts of different types of relationships. So yes, sorry, continue.
Well, so she was kind of giving tips on how to handle not only in what is supposed to be a loving relationship. Her mother was gaslighting her for her entire upbringing, and she has risen above it. And now she's a therapist and has some really great, like what she would say, tips to do. And that the first one, and I thought this was interesting, is just remain defiant. And what that means is it doesn't make you difficult, but it makes you resilient. And so you kind of have to like stand your ground in a way.
I think that makes sense though, because I think also just being able to recognize it and say like, this is what you're doing to me right now.
Right.
You are wrong. I know what I saw. That's sort of the defiance there. But then, you know, and they'll probably call you difficult, but then it's okay.
And that's okay to be a difficult woman.
Oh yeah, you know.
But the trust your reality. Because that's the thing that the gaslighter will be trying to take away is your actual reality. Recognizing that there will never be accountability for the other person. They'll never take it.
That's the hard part, I think. That's the part I think that's the hardest, is that you really want to be able to change that person's perspective. But that's the part you cannot control.
Right. Because they'll never have logic and reason. You kind of just have to,
unless they come to that on their own, you know.
Right. Another one, she said, kind of in the same vein, but let go of the wish for it to be different, because it will never be. I mean, unless like the person makes their own choices and changes and stuff, it won't. It just won't. And then develop a healthy detachment and get help. Like distinguish the differences. Oh, this was actually good to apply to political gaslighting, which we'll talk about later. But distinguish the differences and they're living in an alternate facts world, you know, and where you're going to stick to reality. And so, like, write it down, organize it. This happened. This was real, and then validate my reality. So, and also, I mean, her biggest thing that she ended with is that it really helps to getting therapy, but then also get another third party in. Like in the movie Gaslight, you know, she had to have validation from somebody else to say, wait a minute, yeah, the lights are dimming. You're not crazy. So, you know, get help from a friend or really, you know, if it's really abusive, you need to get professional help.
Yeah. Well, speaking of political gaslighting, I think that's one of the ways that term is really like popped into our lexicon more and more, is because of our president.
Oh my God.
The king of gaslighting. He's not even good at it. He's just like, because it's so clear. And that's another sign that someone's gaslighting, is that they'll say they didn't say something that they're on record of saying, you know?
Right.
And he loves to do that. He's like, I never said that. I guess you did. We have it on record.
And narcissists, like, he's the biggest narcissist that we know. And narcissists are constantly gaslighting people and trying to manipulate their reality to fit their own. Yeah.
Change the storyline so that they can, you know, be in control and be, you know, in power and be, you know, the one that can control other people. And so one thing that can happen with gaslighting is that if you aren't fully aware that it's happening, then you're really susceptible to it. And then you start to really believe the gaslighter, you know, so that and you're seeing it right now in American politics, that a lot of these people, it's like you can try to show them that he's like lied about this and that, and they just don't really want to see it either. They kind of get wrapped into that whole manipulation in this really weird way. I mean, America is in an abusive relationship with President Trump right now.
The pandemic, number one, he has been gaslighting us since the very beginning of this thing. You know, the doctors, the scientists are saying one thing, and then he's saying another. He's totally gaslighting us on this to make him benefit. for his,
for whatever. Or even, I mean, sometimes I don't even know what the benefit is to him. I mean, it's like sometimes there's clear benefits. Sometimes it's just like, he just doesn't even know what he's talking about.
Money is the only thing that stimulates that,
Money, but also he doesn't want to look weak. Like, that's part of it too. Like with the mask, I was just talking to my mother about this today, that like more and more and more and more and more evidence is coming out that masks are helpful, at least, that they help prevent it from spreading. I'm not saying it's 100%. Nobody's saying it's 100%. Nobody knows for sure, but the evidence is coming out more and more. If everybody wears masks, it's just really going to help curb this thing, and people won't wear masks. And I was like, if our president wore a mask and said it's cool to wear a mask, so many people would follow suit. But because he actively goes up there and says masks are for pussies and like masks don't do anything and it's a waste of whatever, which is not true because it's going against what the scientists said, that's why people are like, oh, it's not a big deal. If he's not going to wear it, I don't have to. Anyway, that's just a whole other thing. But wear a mask.
Yeah. Well,
come on, guys.
I was talking with a friend. Yeah, I feel crazy being the only person wearing masks, because then people not wearing masks are kind of gaslighting you into thinking you're crazy, because you're like, well, I have this scientific evidence that I've been reading
I'm going to wear
about.
a mask. I don't give a fuck what you think about how I look.
Yeah.
I'm going to wear a mask until I don't need to anymore. I'm so over that.
Yeah.
But but there's the defiance.
Yeah. But his movement of the fake news and attacking New York Times and all the language that our president uses.
And even like the grab him by the pussy stuff, he said all that stuff. And then he's sort of like, I didn't say that. And you're like, oh, it's locker. Also, another way you can gaslight is by trying to minimize the importance of something. So him saying like, grab him by the pussy was, oh, it's just locker room talk. Oh, you're being too sensitive. Oh, it's not that big of a deal. That was also something, because it really is taking, it's trying to deflect responsibility from yourself.
Deflect. I was reading this article from theconversation.com. Look at me citing sources.
I got to do better. I know.
But it's a great article, Gaslighting from Partners to Politicians and How to Avoid Becoming a Victim. Highly recommend it. But the thing that I took away the most from the article is that it said that the next time a politician says something outrageous, do not be outraged. Look for the real event that this shiny object is trying to distract you from. And I think that is what Trump, and I don't think he's smart enough, really, but like he's been sneaking in all sorts of things this week. Where like under the like obviously Black Lives Matter is the biggest thing that we should be screaming and about, but this week he passed the transgender thing and a couple weeks ago he passed was killing did you hear about this, bears and wolves cubs that people can go now and into their den while they're hibernating and kill? I mean, just these little, tons of big little things that he keeps passing.
Well, a lot of quote unquote little things add up to really big things.
Right.
Also, like what kind of a coward wants to go into a den where animals are sleeping and then murder them? If you're a person who wants to do that, then we should, I don't know, then I want to come and stick a pen up your nose while you're sleeping.
Yes. A pen, that's nice.
I don't want to kill anybody. I'm not going to condone killing, but I will stick a maggot in your ear while you're sleeping if you go in and try to kill baby animals. Right. Or any kind of animals while they're sleeping. That's not hunting. That's not hunting.
But I do think his administration is very good at saying, oh, look at this, and then over here be doing these other evil things. So
yes, very much so. And I think that's one of the reasons why, because it's not just him that's doing the gaslighting, it's all of his compadres that are like on board with this shit. They back him up. And that's an interesting thing too about like how you're saying it's when you're being gaslit, it's nice to have a third party come in. Well, in his case, he's like using these third and fourth parties to solidify his fakeness, his lies.
Right. It's called the Republican Party. Yep.
It's real bad. It's real bad, you guys. Well, another interesting form of gaslighting that we've been seeing a lot, and is becoming more into our consciousness is racial gaslighting. Mm-hmm. And there's this woman named Jacqueline Ogorchukwu Yama, is an Instagram person, and she is also, I think, a psychologist and studies racial psychology. Has a really, really, really interesting Instagram account, and it's at Ogorchukwu with another U. So it's OGORCHUKWUU is her Instagram. I highly recommend you follow it. There's just such interesting information on there, and the way she poses it is really interesting. But she sort of went viral because she was talking about what racial gaslighting sounds like. And I think, did you see that post?
Yes.
And it's things that we've been hearing a lot on Facebook lately, and things your friends have probably said, and maybe things that we have said by accident, not knowing what we were doing. But it's detrimental and it's fucked up, and so we have to all stop. So if you're saying something like, if you protested peacefully, more people would listen to you. That's gaslighting.
Mm-hmm. What I said is not racist.
Right. Racism doesn't exist anymore.
It was just a joke. Calm down.
Fill in the blank. People are racist too.
Why is it always about race?
Are you sure that's what's really happening here?
Just to play devil's advocate here.
And in my opinion, I don't think that they were being racist. I think
those last two hit home so hard because I've been hearing so many of my friends say, well, just to play devil's advocate, or
right.
I don't know any racists. I'm like,
right. What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Right. And I think that as the last two, I think too are tricky because I think that people also, especially in my opinion, it's like, that's your opinion. Okay. So you feel like, all right, I'm allowed to come in with this thing. But what you do when you say it's my opinion that this is not racist or whatever, is that you really are undermining someone's actual experience with it. And it sort of reminds me also when the guy, what you were saying, is he was like, well, I was raised by a woman. And I'm like, I am a woman. I have had those experiences.
Right.
I got into a big fight with somebody once about whether mansplaining was a thing or not. And it was at the end of the day, I was like, we can't even have this argument because you're just going to keep telling me it's not, which is mansplaining to me, first of all. You're doing it right now. But also that you're never going to know what I experience. Mm-hmm. I can tell you over and over again that I have experienced it. That's why I know it's a thing, but it doesn't matter because unless you're willing to just go, wow, you're right. I don't really know what that's like. Then and that's really the right answer to that, where you're not going to be gaslighting if you go, I'm listening to your experience and I'm hearing it.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it that way. And now I do because you told me and because you experienced it.
Right. Right. Well, the second slide, do you mind, were you going to read the second slide?
No, go for it.
So the second slide on her Instagram that went viral, she tender reminders for, what is BIPOC? I know it's people of color, but
it's I want to say it's Black and Indigenous people and people of color.
Oh, Black Indigenous?
Let me double check that.
I think that's
I'm pretty sure it's
Black.
It's it's including all of them. So it's Black people, it's Indigenous people, and it's other people of color.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that's been included.
Because for a while I thought it was biracial.
That's what I thought as well.
But then I saw it yesterday or something. Mm-hmm. And I saw, Black, Indigenous, people of color.
Okay.
Meaning those are different types, not just a Black Indigenous person of color.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, so then on this slide on Instagram, she's listing tender reminders for Black and Indigenous and people of color. Number 1, do not let anyone tell you how to feel about something that they have never had to experience in their body. Number 2, do not exhaust yourself arguing with someone who is more concerned about not being called racist than simply doing the work to be anti-racist. And then number 3, do not spend any time trying to prove why something is racist. Your experience is your expertise.
And I think that also goes for any kind of I thought that was also good advice for anybody that's in a gaslighting relationship where, again, you cannot, I especially don't exhaust yourself arguing with it, because it's like, if they're not going to work on really listening, then they're just not worth your time,
Mm-hmm. I guess that's why, bringing it back to that neighbor, it sounds like she was open to listening in a way rather than...
And she had to come to that on her own. And honestly, it may have been because she was humiliated publicly, And so they did something. But it seems like they also your friends didn't spend a lot of time trying to convince her so much as they were just saying let me demonstrate what we've been dealing with. And then we're able to turn something really good into it, turn something good out of it. Does that make sense? To get something good out of this situation. Another panel that she does these like beautifully curated. It's also just a beautiful Instagram account. And this one stood out to me too, where she talks about racial trauma and that racial trauma is real. And it says in the panel, in psychology, there isn't a way to recognize and assess racial trauma. This is because healing is generally based on a Eurocentric experiences. As a person of color, it's important that you know that your experiences are real, your trauma is real, and most importantly, the healing you deserve is real. And I think that that's something that we as white people have not allowed people of color to express, and we haven't allowed them to have their experiences. And so that's something we can all work on. I really like this Instagram account. It's really smart. It's really well done.
I saw her post, and that's what made me be like, we should do gaslighting, because
that's what I wondered actually after I saw this later. I was like, oh, I wonder if that's why Marie thought about it.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've always just associated gaslighting with Trump and in relationships. And then when I saw this, it was like real tangible things that we can be aware of.
Yeah. And then again, when we're uncomfortable with something and we don't want to deal with it head on, that's when we, I think if you're a person that might be the gaslighter, be aware of yourself and say, hey, am I gaslighting right now? Am I uncomfortable with having this real conversation? Am I uncomfortable with hearing something I don't want to hear? Because that might be what leads then to gaslighting and trying to shut somebody down, is when you're uncomfortable with what you're hearing.
Right.
We all got to be better. I mean, this is just generally, I think for every single human being, we can all do better at listening to each other about whatever it is we need to express. And I think like as a culture, and also with men, like as a culture, we don't really encourage men to express themselves. We don't really encourage women to express themselves. We don't really encourage anybody to express themselves. Everybody's just supposed to deal with whatever the fuck they want to deal with. And it's, that the life is the way it is. And if you don't like it, go back to your country or do, it's just that if that's the response, then we're never going to be able to have productive conversations. We're never going to be able to hear each other.
Yeah.
So
I think it's so important now more than ever is to listen and hear each other and know that everyone is in different places experiencing their own things. And we just got to be better. Yeah.
Yeah. It's starting. It's happening. It's good.
Yes. Well, great. Yeah. I love this episode.
Yeah. I hope it was helpful to people in lots of different ways.
Very curious if anyone has a great gaslighting story. We would love to hear it. We'll validate you. We'll tell you you're not crazy. But send it to difficultwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, we're on Patreon, y'all. Under Reformed Whores, go to patreon.com, Reformed Whores. We've been doing a positivity podcast. It's only 10 minutes every Friday. We call it Huddle with the Whores.
Yeah.
So it's only on Patreon. So if you can.
Come join us there, and then you can listen to that one too.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hope everyone's staying safe and wearing masks and all that stuff.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. Go forth and be merry.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Come home from my trip to IKEA. Excited to build, but then I see ya. You say, little lady, I'll show you how it's done. Now I know this dumb shit's begun. Cut to what should have been a 10-minute task. Turn into a 3-hour pain in my ass. I don't need any help with those shelves, 'cause I've done it billions of times before all by myself. Hey dude, don't tell me what to do. Just 'cause you got a penis, that don't make you a genius. At the meeting I sit next to my boss Chris. I prepared all my notes, I know I got this. When it's finally my turn to speak, that man, I'll step out to the John for a leak. You don't listen or you talk over me. And if I complain, then you call me bitchy. But that great idea you're getting high fives for, I said that same idea 5 minutes before. Hey man, don't think you understand. Just cause you got man parts, that don't mean that you're so smart. You can have your own opinions, that's not the issue. But no need to condescend or patronize. Don't tell me my lived experience is untrue, just cause you got a dong between your thighs. And here's an FYI for us white folks, this don't just happen between women and men. We do the same thing to people of color, so it's about time we start listening to one another. This morning when I turned on the news, I saw the White House was chock full of dudes. Now how are all these guys with dicks gonna make health decisions for us chicks? I brought it up to hear my about to scream, cause I don't see your degree in gynecology. You think you know it all cause you have a ball sack. But what you don't know is this pussy grabs back. Hey guy, I'm tired of being shy. Just cause you got a D don't mean you went to MIT. Us ladies have got our own brains, so we don't need you to mansplain. Yeah. Get it? Yeah, it's not cool. Don't do it. Okay, bye.